Well, awesome, man. We mentioned the 20,000 workouts that you've done in your life, all without causing any injury, which I think is wonderful. We can add one more to that tally because since you are here in the Valley, we both work out in the same place. Huge shout out to the refinery and Jess and John, who do an amazing job with an incredible facility that you and I both work out at. I've had the opportunity to go through the workout that you provide and to experience that firsthand. Now, I would say that you and I train in a very similar way. We both practice what is called high intensity training, which I really want to talk about today. But doing that session with you that day, that was quite a workout. Let me just leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah. Shout out to the refinery. Shout out to John and Jess. They're just the best, and the culture in that gym is just world class. I mean, it's so cool to have a place that feels like home. Especially because my fiance and I are newer to Utah, and so just the welcoming atmosphere that we feel in that place has just been awesome. And yeah, I mean, there's so many flavors and varieties of high intensity training, as you've probably come to see. And I think it's interesting anytime you get different practitioners together, because you're always going to have a different perspective on essentially what we're doing is the same thing, right? But how are we going to deliver that and execute on it, and create an experience for the client that's going to keep them wanting to come back, and obviously keep them as safe as possible.
Yeah, well, you did a great job with that when you and I did our workout together. Just the way you would, I would be completely spent, like my hamstrings were done, dude. And you're like, okay, three more, and I was like, what are you talking about? Three more? There's no three more. And the way you assist as far as the machine and help the person kind of negatively unload the weight was really really helpful. I remember my triceps cramping when I was doing a leg press. That's what kind of depth of intensity you put me through on that day. And so I would say that day I wasn't, super friendly with you, but I really appreciated going there because I think without having somebody take you to that level of effort, not many people are going to be willing to take themselves as deep as they need to go to really truly experience that. So I really appreciated that.
Yeah, no, it was my pleasure, man. And I think a lot of times, people think they push themselves hard, and I am by no means saying that I'm like the hardest worker in the room. But what I've learned over the years in this industry specifically is it requires, like, if you want to get the absolute most out of yourself, you have to have somebody else there. Now, you can make an argument that maybe that's not actually necessary, depending on what style of training you're doing and how often you're training, to actually get every last ounce of energy and effort out of you on every single exercise. And I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more. But if that's your goal, if your goal is to work as hard as humanly possible, I was talking with Jay Vincent the other day, who you may or may not know is sort of a high intensity training Instagram influencer, really smart guy, really nice guy, super well educated on high intensity training. And we were sort of talking about that idea that you require somebody else to be there if the goal is as much effort as humanly possible. It's almost impossible to get to that point on your own. Maybe there's a few exceptions to that rule, but they are few and far between for sure.
I agree with you 100%. I love talking about the value that a personal trainer truly provides. When I first started in this industry, I got my certification and I thought that I would be hired as a personal trainer to create the perfect program design, to nail exactly the right number of sets and reps and an order of exercise that made the perfect sense, that would be perfect for this person's goals. And I learned really early on, people cared a lot less about that. And also, that so many different modalities would really work. It didn't matter if you were like crazy specific with everything that you were doing, as much as it was like you were the person that showed up at the same day and same time. Like my clients at 6 a.m. I showed up at their house. I'm waiting on their porch, and they said, "You know what, Casey? Like if you weren't here, we'd still be asleep." That's the value. They've been consistent with their workouts because of that. There's also the value of a trainer who is, becoming family with somebody. They're talking with somebody and providing support, and not necessarily always telling people what to do, but asking questions and helping people think critically on their own so they can make their own decisions. And I think what you said about a trainer being able to push you that next level is absolutely true. There's no chance that I would have pushed myself to the level of depth that you helped me achieve in that workout. And so it's just interesting to see what the true value of personal training really is.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's lost on people like us who are in the industry and or who are going through the motions of that every single day. So it can be cool to be reminded of that. Like I got the opportunity to, I've been training this guy virtually for a number of years, and he was in town last week, and we got the opportunity to work together in person, which we've only ever been able to do like two or three times. And I mean, he's like you said, he's become family. He's become a really close friend of mine, I would even say. And it's just awesome to not just have the connection from a training perspective where he knows the value that I bring to the table and constantly reminds me of it, which is just a good feeling of, reassurance, like, oh, okay, what I'm doing is making a difference. But also like the connection that you create with people when you do hold them accountable. Like people like to be held accountable. Some people, not everyone. But people that are self-aware, and I feel like have goals and want to attain things and want to be a better version of themselves every single day, have to have other people in their lives that hold them accountable. It doesn't have to be a personal trainer, but whatever the aspect is that you're trying to improve on, whether it's mentorship in business or you're trying to become, a better whatever, a pilot or something like that, you have to have somebody that's holding you accountable, making sure that you're doing the right things. And we serve a really critical role in doing that in people's lives. So it's pretty awesome.
I love that. I remember several years ago watching a documentary about caddies in golf, and what they do and how they assist the golfer. And I really think of personal trainers like that as well. When you and I were doing our workout, like to be able to set up a machine exactly the right way, I didn't really have to think about it. I just had to do the lift. You knew exactly the machine, exactly the settings, all that stuff. I know that I could have asked you at any point, why are we doing this? But I realized that I either already know or I don't really care. But again, like relating that to like a golfer and a caddy, like a personal trainer should be taking care of all that stuff for you. They should be able to explain at any given time, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? Why do we choose this machine in this order? What are we focusing on? How is this relating to my goals? But also, again, that bond, that closeness is a big part of it. And so I think all of that, again, just really illustrates the value of hiring a trainer, even if it's just for a short period of time.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned a little bit earlier about when we first get into this industry about how we have this, this grand idea that we're going to create the program that's going to be the perfect program for every single person. And I think you quickly start to realize after you've done this for a while that there is no such thing, right? If anything, our goal should be to help people to work as hard as possible with whatever their goals are. So I think this idea that we have to like be programming gurus and you have to reinvent the wheel with every single person that comes in. I honestly would say err on the side of being as simple as possible until that person goes, is there any other stuff we can do? Right. Because if you get the fundamentals down, if you get the big things down, big compound lifts, making sure more than anything that they're understanding your client is understanding what intensity looks like, what effort actually looks like, man, I mean, you get 95% of the way to your goals just through doing those fundamental things. And then it's like some sprinkles on top if you want to add in some other fun exercises and things like that that might keep them engaged over the long term.
I love that. Yeah, keeping people engaged is such a good point, and that's where more variety can come in. Obviously, like you said, starting with that foundation is so important, and then building on that over time to just, if nothing else, to keep that person engaged, I think is really important.